I talked to one of the refs when she checks in. Hey, we got history from the first game.
There's not just the voice. There's these pictures, that have come out. And I know a lot of people immediately want to say, well, these are, they're not real pictures, right? They're doctored photographs. But this one I saw, I was like, man, that's actually the girlfriend in the background.
You seem concerned but hopeful.
I'm only hopeful if she doesn't win. If she wins, we're going to have a real problem in this country. And the problem will be on the world level, it'll be on a national level, and it'll be on a state level. I don't know what she brings to the table other than disaster.
Brittney Griner's Olympic dream didn't collapse on the basketball court. It was shattered in a courtroom battle led by Jeanine Pirro, a TV judge turned fierce legal bulldog. Hard to believe, right? One of the most famous names in women's basketball blindsided in a way no fan could have predicted. The result? She's officially out of the Olympics. If you're wondering how something this bizarre could unfold, let's break it down, because this may be the wildest twist in women's basketball history. When word first spread that Pirro had filed a case against Griner, the reaction was disbelief. It sounded more like a parody skit than a legitimate headline. But it was no joke. The case was very real, and the stakes were far bigger than anyone expected. This wasn't about fines, suspensions, or public relations scandals. This was about the Olympics, the ultimate stage in sports. Pirro stepped into the fight not as a TV personality, but as someone claiming to defend the integrity of women's athletics. That alone left people stunned. Why would an outsider target one of the WNBA's brightest stars? Yet she pressed on. From the opening hearing, the case gained legitimacy, turning a circus-like spectacle into a headline-grabbing legal showdown. Fans and media wanted to know, what evidence could Pirro possibly have, and could she really take down Griner at the height of her career? The courtroom quickly transformed into a new kind of arena. On one side, Griner's legal team dismissed the accusations as absurd, irrelevant, and completely out of line. On the other, Pirro came armed with sharp claims that went far beyond casual criticism. She accused Griner of undermining the essence of fair women's competition. Everything from training methods to overseas decisions to whispered allegations of unfair advantages was dragged into the spotlight. The tension in the room was undeniable. Judges weren't brushing it off. They listened closely, leaning in with interest. Slowly, the momentum shifted. Griner, a dominant force on the hardwood, looked vulnerable in a setting she couldn't control. Each fresh argument from Pirro's side carried more weight than the last. This battle was no longer about rebounds or points. It became a fight over credibility, fairness, and whether her Olympic eligibility could withstand the relentless cross-examination. Week after week, Jeanine Pirro kept pressing her case, landing legal blows that refused to fade into the background. What many thought would be dismissed as a sideshow only grew larger, and fans watching from the outside slowly realized Brittney Griner was in real danger. Then came the shocking turning point, the judge's ruling. In a decision that stunned the sports world, Griner was officially barred from competing in the upcoming Olympics. Just like that, her chance to wear her country's colors on the grandest stage was gone. For a player whose entire career has been built on global competition, the verdict wasn't just disappointing, it was crushing. Analysts immediately called it the harshest punishment in modern sports history. The public struggled to understand how a courtroom decision, led by someone who never played professional basketball, could dictate the Olympic fate of one of the game's biggest stars. Outside the courthouse, Pirro wasted no time celebrating, declaring her win not personal but symbolic for women everywhere, a statement that cheating and bending rules would never be tolerated. Meanwhile, Griner stood speechless, visibly stunned by the outcome. For someone who dominates the paint with power and control, she suddenly looked defenseless, boxed out in a way no rival had ever managed. The ruling wasn't just about removing her Olympic hopes, it reshaped how people viewed her entirely. She walked into court as a superstar, a face of the WNBA, larger than life. She walked out under a cloud of suspicion, mocked for being taken down by a TV judge. The shift was brutal. Analysts who once praised her talent began questioning her integrity. Fans who once saw her as unstoppable now doubted her legacy. Her silence after the verdict only made matters worse, painting the picture of someone unprepared and overwhelmed. It wasn't the commanding presence of a center swatting shots with ease. It was the image of an athlete cornered, stripped of her aura. Griner had faced controversies before, but this one felt different. Points scored, highlights made, championships won, none of it seemed to matter now. She looked outplayed, and the person responsible wasn't an all-star opponent or rival coach. It was Jeanine Pirro holding a court ruling like a trophy. And as if that blow wasn't damaging enough, rumors and fallout began to swirl almost immediately. Almost immediately, old gender-related reports about Brittney Griner resurfaced, sparking fresh speculation over whether she held an unfair advantage in women's competition. These whispers had shadowed her career before, but now they were amplified on a global stage. Pirro's legal team didn't avoid the subject. They reportedly leaned into it as part of their case. Overnight, the debate shifted away from basketball skills and Olympic eligibility to questions of biology and fairness in women's sports. Whether the claims were believed or not, the fact they were tied to an official ruling gave them more weight than ever. Suddenly, Griner wasn't just criticized as an athlete, she was mocked, ridiculed, and questioned in ways that went beyond her game. Some critics even suggested she never belonged in the women's division at all. It was ugly, controversial, and it poured fuel on Pirro's courtroom victory. For Griner, the fight wasn't just about an Olympic dream anymore, it had become a brutal perception war, one nearly impossible to win. The Olympics represent the pinnacle of sacrifice, years of training, and the highest honor an athlete can achieve. Griner had been a lock for Team USA, expected to shine on the international stage once again. Now that future had been ripped away. This wasn't a suspension, a fine, or even a lost season. This was a total erasure of her chance to wear her country's colors. Fans who anticipated seeing her dominate for the red, white, and blue will instead watch her sidelined, forced to reflect on how fast everything collapsed. The damage isn't only emotional, it's financial. Olympic exposure means endorsements, international recognition, and career-defining opportunities. Without it, Griner's path forward looks uncertain, and the personal blow is devastating. Imagine dedicating your entire life to a moment, only to see it taken in a courtroom instead of decided in competition. This ruling doesn't just dent her reputation, it fractures her legacy. On the other side, Jeanine Pirro basked in the spotlight like she had just nailed a game-winning shot. Outside the courthouse, she declared the verdict wasn't a victory for herself, but for women everywhere. According to her, the decision set a new precedent. No athlete, regardless of fame or status, could bend the rules without consequences. Her words spread fast. Some hailed her as a champion of fairness. Others accused her of chasing headlines. But no matter the perspective, Pirro controlled the moment. She cast herself as a guardian of integrity, someone bold enough to challenge even the sport's biggest icons. And in the end, she walked away from the battle not just victorious, but more powerful than ever. Agree with her or not, there's no denying Jeanine Pirro completely rewrote the script. Brittney Griner, a WNBA legend, was left voiceless, while a former TV judge walked away the clear victor. The entire scene felt surreal dramatic, in a way destined to be replayed for years whenever conversations about accountability in sports arise. The ripple effect through the WNBA was instant. Some players were stunned, unable to believe one of their brightest stars could be sidelined in such a shocking fashion. Others, however, were less sympathetic. Behind closed doors, whispers suggested some athletes believed Griner had coasted on her name and reputation, and this ruling finally exposed her. The league itself was thrust into an awkward bind. Should it defend one of its most marketable faces or step back and let the storm pass? For younger players climbing the ranks, the message couldn't have been clearer. Fame doesn't grant immunity. The split reactions only deepened the league's fractures. Some players rallied behind Griner, condemning the decision as unfair and excessive. Others distanced themselves, quietly relieved the heat wasn't aimed at them. In the end, the WNBA's muted response spoke volumes. It underscored how fragile reputations truly are, and how quickly the spotlight can turn from praise to interrogation. Griner's legal team immediately vowed to appeal, but experts warned the path ahead was daunting. Once a ruling of this magnitude is issued, overturning it is extraordinarily difficult. The legal weight is immense, and Pirro's camp knows it. Meanwhile, rumors swirled about what Pirro might target next. Some speculated half seriously, half fearfully, that she could set her sights on other high-profile athletes, with